Today, I would like to share about the program for the Friday night of the ECK Worldwide in 2015. I thought Doug Coonan was that guy from Mad TV, but he might have been Harold Klint's psychologist in California, even though they look the same. Eckankar has been around for 50 years, and their temple in Chanhassen, Minnesota has been open for 25 years. Many have fallen for the concept of there being a God-man. His expressions showed abrogation on that and the issue of the central theme of Eckankar productions, Main Love. Coffee Adranji quoted Acres of Diamonds as people being jewels that are polished to reflect divine love. He thought encountering the leader of Eckankar, either in the Temple of Eck in Chanhassen or a particular grocery store he heard people had at, was what he needed. He never met or saw him physically, but was convinced he had an inner connection. He eventually had to go back to Africa and was called back to introduce him in a seminar. But he couldn't look at him because he was starstruck. In his culture, you also were not supposed to stare at the eyes of a person, so he struggled. Fantasies about what you'll do with people or how they'll interact with you should never be superseded by the empirical experiences with them. The Eck books, are only as groundbreaking as much as the people psych themselves up to consider them. Here, The Line Was Busy, Acorn Planner, and The Passing of the Rod of Eck Tower were probably edited to obscure I'm personally very suspicious about the idea that, oh, well, we had this footage, but we're not going to release it for 30 years, particularly when they want to wait to make sure the programming of those that might remember have forgot that are been taught to think otherwise, that there was still another living Eckmaster, and Harold Klimt was not the Mahanta as far as the Eckankar Corporation was concerned, and you find that in the pre-1983 literature, and they didn't develop this doctrine until Harold Klimt started his autobiography series. What is a program without a commercial? I could do better with a book club. Carol Walsh and Friends sings Loving Eck, Sharing Eck. The idea is Eckankar feeling is supposed to make people think it's about God, but the thought is that it is as vague as Marklar on that one South Park episode. You know, because everything was, you know, an action could be a Marklar. You don't know if Marklar is a verb or a noun or an adverb or the subject or what is Marklar. You know, F can be like that. Most people can invent an imaginative way to think about it. Susan Miller becomes the new president of the Eckankar Corporation instead of just media production head, starting with the start of 2016. I disagree with the idea that she is all that creative if she couldn't figure out better or equal practices with the Shariat Ki Sugmad, or the Eckankar Bible. Her actions or mannerisms seem to be rehearsed to think her belief is as strong as she claims. Difficulty at work isn't a waking dream message. Diversions from acted out ways, like repeatedly rolling your eyes, doesn't grant confidence in what a person says. I agree that there are truths missed in life and in Scripture, but whether it's made up Scripture, whether it's a real Scripture, an inspired Scripture, as far as, you know, I mean, inspired by God, revealed by God, Nabi law, Rasul law, that type of thing. But I don't think there is anything but something centered on Guru. I don't think there is anything something centered on Guru worship with valid or diluted bits from various paths. I mean that the only stuff that's valid is from other paths, and Guru worship seems to be the center, so-called uniqueness of the Eckankar, but that's not unique. Harold Klink's first wife, Marge, Elaine Paul, and Jack Kyle go to share an obviously altered testimony of the early days of Eckankar. They're at that platform of 8 initiates that no one except their leader, and now he claims to be a 14th, to distance himself past an understandably attainable level. Brad Steiger, in My Soul I Am Free, was brought to a Salt Lake Spiritual Studies group that was instructed to find a master in a living human body to follow, and Marge thought Paul Twitchell's answers to letters in the book and the fact that she started to dream about him made her confident enough to join the group and go to a conference with a handful of hundred people instead of thousands like the current biennial seminars. After the talk, she couldn't shake his hand like the rest, you know, because she was short. Marge was walked back to her room by him. As sort of a secret job interview. Her family was suspicious of her going to Las Vegas to work at the main office. Elaine was given the same book, read it one weekend, and joined. Paul Twitchell spoke in Utah and gave her static shock. She thought it was darshan, or viewing of a god or something, and she applied to work at the office and jumped into something contrary to the parents' beliefs, just like the local Portland area people who said they had no second thoughts or constant awakening. They seemed abrogated in saying it. Such diversions don't prove a lie, but it's more reliable than a lie detector, particularly when it's only that one issue. Now, some people could be nervous. You talk about a trauma or something they're ashamed of or whatever, but the fact that all, you know, with one, well, I mean, not that obvious, you have to pay attention. With one belief or one issue, or maybe two issues, and it's always that issue, you know, you kind of start thinking they're lying to you. They hid the fact that them working in the office in 1972 was not under Paul Twitchell nor Harold Klemp. They didn't see Paul Twitchell much, even though he was supposed to run the organization. Volunteer work helped increase his salary. They edited and wrote letters to initiates that were treated like personal responses from their leader. Under Darwin Gross, Elaine went to Australia to be the only high initiate there at first. She spent 18 years there as a missionary for a movement started by a man who says very simple things perceived to be hints at a profound sense of knowing. What is it? If you see flaws in their leadership, they refer to some law of spiritual non-perfection to explain how they don't seem better off in character. Or whatever. Okay, I thought maybe I said something good. Whatever. Eckankar celebrating 50 years, 1965 through 2015. Was given the following commentary on YouTube before I was removed from YouTube because they're very, I mean, I don't like insults and stuff and swearing and that sort of thing, but if you just object and you have a reason, whether I think it's a valid reason or not, whether or not I respond, I'm not necessarily going to kick you off my page and stuff like this because you think something different. Like, fine, express your opinions, and I can maybe address something else through that. But this is my commentary to that video at 10 seconds. Such a profound claim begs to ask, if anything is left out or better found elsewhere, if your answer is no, then Eckankar is a spiritual path you should choose. And this program, this was originally part of the Friday night program closest to the October 22nd, if I don't remember which day that is, folks. That's the situation there. At 33 seconds, 970 Eckmasters, as presented by Eckankar, have no historical existence, but that hardly proves only Paul Twitchell, 1964 to 1971, Darwin Gross, 1971, to that board meeting in August of 1983, which after that he no longer had the titles Shri, Living Eckmaster, Inner Eckmaster, Outer Eckmaster, Armahanta in the Eckankar literature, and Harold Klemp, 1981 through to whenever he dies, or if he finally comes to terms and is honest about Eckankar, were neither real or useful reference to those who mentioned them. 2 minutes and 44 seconds. I can find reference that Harold was an Eckmaster, but the literature before Darwin Gross was kicked out, including that at Eckankar libraries I've seen, the satsang societies, his testimony in the court cases and that of others at the time makes no mention of Harold Klemp being considered a Mahanta are the only Eckmaster. 2 minutes and 54 seconds. I seem to have dreams with blue carnations around midnight of the night between October 21st and October 22nd. 3 minutes and 16 seconds. You can tell that Eckankar is more of a spiritual path than a natural religion by the fact that he more than trims, he shaves. 3 minutes and 31 seconds. This is the theory of original memory. I think you will find that that theories of Freud and others about those who think they are divine, are part divine, are true. 4 minutes and 4 seconds. Harold Klemp had a dream in 1980. Z told Dap Ren. It was made a future project that took years of looking and building. Halfway through Eckankar history, now known as WASI, he dedicated it. 4 minutes and 33 seconds. I seem to have interesting dreams about ruby quartz wands or devices that I have access to around October 22nd. That started with the year of spiritual healing then. 5 minutes and 19 seconds. It is an amazing feat for a faith with less worldwide believers than either of the Islamic populations in the county or city of either of those two African temples of Ek to be so far spread. 5 minutes and 23 seconds. I hadn't even heard of the Togo and Quebec temples. 5 minutes and 28 seconds. If anyone gives me any of the works of the historical beings called Eckmasters, I will read and reference it. Well, not how the Eckankar Corporation or actual believers might want me to, but nonetheless. 5 minutes and 36 seconds. Who else thinks of aliens with that graven image? You know, that black and white, sort of blue, gray, master's gaze, or whatever they call, or whatever that one's called. 6 minutes and 3 seconds. Yes, that offer to read and refer to even applies to the children's books. 6 minutes and 24 seconds. I had a dream where I was going through the Chanhassen Temple and kept hearing Harold Klemp voice saying he was there. Now, of course, that's really blasphemous to the Eckankar members because if they've gone far enough in the thing, either they're quiet about it or they actually believe that Harold Klemp is everywhere, just like that man who worked in the temple and never saw Harold Klemp there. 6 minutes and 57 seconds. Light and sound are ways to interpret all vibrations. How can anyone not be a traveler in what can be seen and heard? 7 minutes and 15 seconds. That loud part would have been the worst part of the celebration for me and a lot of people, but not everything is beneficial to all. And that's the end of that portion of the video. I agree that group study and service can be better than individual efforts collectively. Testimony is an important feature of a spiritual group, but it's going too far for it to be donate your art and stories for us to profit and prove we are superior. Inspiration comes from all sorts of sources, but let's not pretend like each source doesn't deserve credit for its own action instead of treating it all like impulses from some guru. Cameron Shute needed to contemplate to figure out that he wouldn't advance far in baseball due to injuries. Yeah, few people would actually need to do spiritual practices and realize it like that. I injured myself enough to realize I wasn't going to go too far in soccer, including making it for another tryout. are even playing it much with friends or something anymore. He ended up being recognized. He ended up in being the most recognized of his school for golf. Aloho Urhai your we decided Yurhi Yahweh, something like that, decided that dream study was the way by which she would make her life spiritual. She thought that recording and understanding her dreams made her better at academics and spirituality. Prairie Brauhard was focused on getting ready, was more focused on getting ready than helping her son, but regretted it later and apologized. I recommend praying to God for help with fear. She stopped thinking as far as she knew in her pretending. She was in the presence of Harold Klemm, till she hallucinated him, probably telling stories she heard or had read before. She tried to explain spiritual study like a parent, making up a fairy tale or a fable about Santa Claus. Prairie's son wanted to be a Wazzy when he grows up. A lot of groups think they have an inner master and an outer master that is not God, at the head of their group. Teachings are more important than personalities. Charmaine Witzak loved history, but felt like she had to visit ruins in Greece. She really thought she missed out about an age with sacred architecture. She had a vision of a globe with a white star over Minnesota. She thought she needed to be there, and ended up joining Eckankar and worked at the temple from the start. In the 1989 X Summer Festival in Orlando, Florida, Harold Klemm spoke of how the temple was representative of a time for seeking consciousness for yourself and for others. Do they become more or less conscious in the group? Coincidences don't necessarily mean perception. Dreaming of a dead spouse does not mean that your dead loved ones are actually communicating with you. A vague message like "I'm at a pyramid" might not be literal, and waiting for an ideal interpretation is a poor idea. Now, the Eckankar temple at Chanhassen doesn't actually have a pyramid. What is it? An 8-sided step pyramid thing, so you have ultimately 9 sides. Well, Eckankar, Emiad, corporate kinesis. If you sleep by a photo of someone and are told of them, you might dream of them in that context. You might not even need to go that far to dream about people in such a context. And people like Eckankar, because they want to talk about experiences like dreams that many can't, and want to learn new spiritual things instead of merely belief shopping. To end this series, I will say, may the blessings be, or Baraka Bashad, as they like to say in Eckankar.